We may have the two best teams in the NFC at Lambeau Field on Sunday. It's an old school NFC North showdown and a crossover Thursday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome inside another crossover Thursday. It's a Locked On Packers, Locked On Vikings crossover Thursday extravaganza. I'm Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers with Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings. Today's crossover Thursday presented by our friends at PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. Luke, this is a fun one on Sunday. Not sure how fun we thought this was going to be coming into the year, because I know you were a little lower on the Vikings than they've turned out to be. But
things are different, man.
Say again?
Things are different than they used to be, okay?
A 3-0 Minnesota Vikings team against a 2-1 Green Bay Packers on Sunday. It is the NFC North opener for each one of these teams. And you and I did a little bit of this yesterday on Locked On Sports Today, but it is remarkable the difference between the Vikings that we've seen on the field and the one that we expected coming into the year. I loved your explanation for why you think that is. Let's talk about it. How did they do this?
I mean, we talked more about it after that show too. I like the way you put it. Like, they made a lot of bets. They made bets on Sam Darnold actually following through on the sort of buzz that he was getting, as he's this new and improved guy. He's this more conservative, and he is. He's been safer with the football. He's got rid of some of not all of the bozo plays, but some of the bozo plays, to the point where it's like sensible. You know, it's like, okay, you got a couple that you maybe wish you had back. You got away with them, and it's easier to get away with 2 than it is to get away with 6.
Right.
They
bet
on
going to happen. Vikings have pounced on some of them.
Yeah. They bet on Aaron Jones he's healthy so far. He's still very speedy, even though, he's on the wrong side of 30. Or he almost is. He's
still personally attacked by that, but go on.
Hey, me too, man. They bet on older corners playing well. They're playing well. They had all of these concerns that you had to go, well, if this works out, if this works out, and if this works out, how every bad team in August, people will be saying, well, if this, that, and the other thing, and they stay a little healthy, we're going to go 10-7 and maybe fight for the division. I feel like we've found an actual real version of that. And that's what's happening to the Vikings.
Unfortunately, that means every year teams are going to keep, fans are going to do this.
People are going to be, well, what about the Darnold Vikings year? Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're already calling this a Geno thing. And I'm sure that you could go back in time.
Okay,
it's
I don't want to fall
6 degrees of separation
rabbit hole, but I think you're a good person to have this conversation with, because, and I know they have JJ McCarthy, but let's say they didn't. Isn't this the potential circumstance that we're talking about, where we go, okay, there's no middle class in the NFL with these quarterback contracts? Isn't this version of Sam Darnold exactly the kind of person that you would want to, let's say he can sustain this for a year, that you would do that for? Because if he looks like this, he's not a $50-60 million a year guy. But if you're getting a top 8, a top 10 offense, he's a $30 million a year guy.
He's playing for someone else's money.
You're getting.
My understanding is he's playing for somebody else's money, and that he's okay with that, and that the Vikings are okay with that. That the Vikings, I mean, they love JJ. They love JJ McCarthy so much.
The McCarthy piece of this, if they hadn't drafted JJ McCarthy,
and somebody should, and I can see, the argument that maybe the Vikings should go with the hot hand, and hey, you've got this, one bird in hand versus 2 in the bush kind of thing. But it's just so moot, because they just won't. They're just not gonna, and we kind of know that. But this is the kind of the bit that I've had on Locked On Vikings is this is the get Sam paid year. Hey, This is a year we're transitioning between quarterbacks. What happens this year has a relatively low impact on how things will go in the future. You look at the Packers and Jordan. If Jordan Love plays well versus if Jordan Love sucks, that changes a lot for the future outlook of the Packers, right? There's a lot of riding on that. There's not a ton riding on that for Sam Darnold because unless we're talking MVP in a Super Bowl, like super extreme corner case, they're letting him go and somebody else is going to pay him, and good for you. So the barometer for this year is how much money Sam Darnold gets. How much money can we trick a team into giving to Sam Darnold in free agency? It's a get Sam paid year. Let's all rally behind him and make that man rich.
I love it. The Vikings paid some of these defensive players in the offseason. Didn't pay Danielle Hunter, but then bring in Jonathan Grenard. They bring in Andrew Van Ginkel, who has been just the perfect chess piece.
Holy moly, he's incredible.
Brian Flores. This is part of the bets that they made, right? Like,
yeah.
Let's bring in some of these guys. Let's make the defense fit what Brian Flores wants to be and hope that that's enough to offset some of the things that teams figured out at the end of last year. And that's worked.
Yeah. And they've addressed the major issues, the schematic issues that happened. Last year, Brian Flores was making something new up. I mean, what his scheme is never before seen in the pro level. And there were a lot of growing pains through that. I mean, through 3 games after Keenan Allen put 200 yards on him, one receiver with the Chargers, they went back to the drawing board, completely changed how they structure their coverages. And then that turned into this crazy good streak. And then the Bengals and Zach Taylor came in with a game plan that really exploited them in the flat, which is kind of where they have seeded and said, if we're going to have a hole anywhere, we're going to have a hole in the flat. And Zach Taylor found a game plan that worked really, really well to exploit that. And then Ben Johnson took that, Matt LaFleur. I mean, it was the exact same game 4 times in a row. They all just were like, all right, well, this is how you beat the Vikings. And then they just smoked the Vikings. So they've made some schematic changes that help you with the flat a little bit. The corners are playing a little bit shallower and in different techniques. And I think it's palms, but for people who really want to get deep, but that has helped. Like the Giants basically tried the same thing in week 1 as all of those 4 teams and got smoked. So they've sort of addressed that. And now the question is, okay, where's the next hole? Who do you attack? But it's a lot of zone coverage. So it's not necessarily it's about the who, it's more about the where. And then, of course, a ton of blitzes and a ton of ability to get pressure, getting one-on-ones for Jonathan Grenard. They got Grenard on a tight end like 6 or 7 times against the Texans. Just being able to get those opportunities for you. Yeah, I don't know how the Texans let that happen. I wouldn't recommend that one, LaFleur. But
I don't think Matt will take that opportunity. They will take time to say, okay, like against Aiden Hutchinson last year, they would put 2 tight ends on him and just say, we're not even going to, we're going to
sure, yeah, 2 tight ends
and here's Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. Have fun with that. And we saw some teams. We saw the Titans do that to Rashawn Gary last week as well. Like, I don't know that the Vikings have a guy who's that level yet. But they don't have one. If there's one guy, it's Grenard. He's the guy that is like the focal point of a lot of pass rushes. But Van Ginkel has been the looper on these stunts sometimes, and he's chased down plenty of quarterbacks. He's been unbelievably productive. Dallas Turner should be returning. They like making him the looper as well. He's quick. The guys on the interior have been way better than we thought against the run. That's another bet that's kind of worked out. Yeah.
But they're not exactly the focal point of pass rushing. And then sometimes, it's a skill, but Blake Cashman, it's Josh Metellus. So yeah, and sometimes Josh Metellus is still mugging the A gap and then dropping back into middle third. Like we're still doing that completely insane thing.
Yeah.
It's totally befuddled the last 2 offenses.
How much they're running.
Yeah. Kyle Shanahan, totally befuddled. Bobby Slowick, totally befuddled. Houston Texans, confused and bewildered on the sideline. Eventually somebody's going to get a better answer, but we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and if it's Jordan Love's first game back, like I was saying this to you off air yesterday, like this is not the game you'd want it to be if you're the Green Bay Packers. Like if you had your druthers, you'd rather it have been last week or the week before, because this team is going to create a lot of confusion up front for this offensive line, for the quarterback. So let's talk about this Packers team.
Yeah.
We'll do that next on a Locked On Packers, Locked On Vikings crossover Thursday. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Gametime gets you into the game at the lowest cost that they can possibly make it work. All right. And they have a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. That's one of the hardest parts of dealing with the buying tickets is you have to find them. You have to find that perfect deal. Well, Gametime makes it easier than ever to actually do that. So we are going to make it easier for you to do it with Gametime. Right now, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. We're back here, Locked On Packers, Locked On Vikings, a crossover Thursday. And Luke, the Packers version that we thought we were going to get, we haven't seen since week 1 because Jordan Love has been hurt. The expectation as of this minute is that Jordan Love is going to have a good chance to play on Sunday. That's just the expectation. I don't know that it's any better than like 60-40 or 70-30 at this point, but I think the expectation that we should operate under is it's more likely than not that Jordan Love is going to play. Before we get to that part of it, though, what have you made of what we've seen the last 2 weeks with Malik Willis, who is, if you look at the efficiency numbers, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league the last few weeks?
Well, QB wins, baby. You can't win without him, right?
Well, they've won, but he has actually looked good doing it. I'm talking about the efficiency numbers, the EPA per play, those sorts of things. Like he actually produced in addition to the fact that they won those games.
You know, I have to look at them closer, and I guess I need to ask you back, like, what kind of offense are we seeing? Like the Colts game, he threw it like 12 times, right? Yeah. Like that was a run game based win, and good for you, but that's not going to be like a Malik Willis thing, and you're not going to get away with that. Like the Titans, I think, better run defense, although they have all kinds of problems and are falling apart. But let's say that you do see Malik Willis as somebody who, we can rally behind him. We can give ourselves a good chance in a game. Is this smart? Like, are we doing something real dumb here with Jordan Love? Like, if he's not 100%, are we rushing him back? Or is this this is a divisional game. This looks like this is going to be stiff divisional competition. We need this one, and we're forcing the issue. Like, how do Packers fans, like, feel about this with Jordan Love? And like, are we being patient or not?
I think that if we obviously we don't have access to the medicals, right? So we can't speak to the degree of risk. I will say the Packers medical staff notoriously conservative on these things. Like they are not the let's rush player X back because we need him out there. They just don't do stuff like that. Like there've been plenty of times over the years where I've been like, well, they have to win this game. Like so-and-so is going to be out there. And then sure enough, the inactives come out and so-and-so is not out there. And we're just sort of like, wait, what? Because that's just not how they operate. I thought, given what we saw on the field before the game in Tennessee, like Jordan Love went through a pretty strenuous pregame workout and yet was not out there. And it sounds like was never going to be out there, that was just part of his conditioning routine. What I was told, and I spoke to a couple different
Did he have like full pads on for that? Or like game pants?
He did not go full Russell Wilson, but he did. Okay. I think he had his pants on.
Okay.
But it was just like pants, his football pants and a t-shirt.
Just got to put the vibe on.
I might be misremembering it now. Maybe he might have been in shorts.
I very distinctly remember seeing him with game pants on and going, oh my God, why is he dressing?
Yes.
But I think just like a t-shirt.
Yeah. It was he did not go full Russell Wilson. Never go full Russell Wilson. But what I was told is the most likely outcome here, if it's an MCL and a grade 1-ish, is what we're calling it. It's like somewhere between a grade 1 and a grade 2.
It's got to be if you're even talking about it.
Yeah, there's not a bright line here either. Is 3 weeks and then you brace it against the Vikings, and then probably by week 5, week 6, you're okay. And so he guessed it was about a 10 to 15% incremental injury risk additionally if he had played against the Titans, and that you're safe essentially at the Vikings. Like you're in a place where you're comfortable with whatever added risk you have by having a veteran player now. And also Jordan Love played with a brace. He had torn his meniscus in college, played with a brace in college, and was able to protect himself enough. That's been the big thing for Matt LaFleur is if we don't think he can protect himself, he can't be out there. And so that's what he's going to have to prove, I think, this week is bodies around him, the weird loops and stunts and twists and games that the Vikings are going to run are you going to be able to pick that stuff up protection wise and ID wise if you're Jordan Love? But that's why you want him out there, right? Because like Malik Willis, like last week, 3rd and 14, he rips an in-breaking route to Romeo Doubs to convert a 3rd and 14. A deep over route on 3rd and 18, he rips to Christian Watson. But with good protection against the defense, that's not going to disguise as much of what they're doing. He can just, like Malik Willis can play point and shoot quarterback, but you can't, ask Brock Purdy, play point and shoot quarterback against this defense. And I think that's why you'd really like to have Jordan Love out there. Yeah,
Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, two very distinct and different people.
I've always said that.
Yeah, I have not. But okay, elsewhere then on the offense, let's say there is a Jordan Love, and if he isn't 100%, maybe he's not as mobile. Other guys need to take up the mantle.
Yeah.
Before the season, there was so much talk about the Packers wide receivers, Dobbs, Christian Watson, Wicks, Jayden Reed. Kind of feels like, and it felt like nobody knew. Like I remember looking at the FanDuel lines for the first game. Every single one of them was 45.5. Nobody knew who the guy was.
Yeah.
Do we know who the guy is now?
No. I think it's if they want to design something for someone, they this year at least have designed it for Jayden Reed. How much of that is because of Malik Willis for 2 weeks, right? Like he's the scheme touch guy in this offense. But then last year, if you look at when they were calling those design shot plays, all of the names that we know by single words, Yankee, Dagger, they were designing those for Dontavian Wicks. And they haven't been doing that because they haven't been calling those the same sort of way this year. They call a 3rd and 6 slot fade last week. That's a Jordan Love call. Like they love to run slot fades on 3rd down and let Jordan Love just like pick a matchup. In this case, it was
like moonball one. Yeah.
And say, okay, if you like that, throw it. And they did it. And Watson made the play. He had like I said, the big 3rd and 18. Yeah, I think he had 2 catches for like 60 yards last week. Like there are going to be games like that for Christian Watson. So it's going to depend on the game plan. I think the manufactured touches, though, going to Jayden Reed, that's going to continue to be a big part of this offense. One of the signature plays of last year, and to me, there were two. That second stretch, right, one of them was the Jayden Reed touchdown against the Vikings, where there's a little bit of pressure. There's a coverage rotation that he identifies, and off platform, he like just flicks his arm. You see his legs actually go from here. He flips them the other way. It's a very Aaron Rodgers sort of motion where it's all upper body torque.
And kind of like how QB's like throwing the run. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like those are the plays that Jayden Reed can make as a vertical slot player that just not a lot of guys in the league can make. I think he's fourth in yards per route run this season. They've been getting chunk plays for him in the design game a lot. And I think they're going to need him in this game because of all of the even if Jordan Love plays, the Packers are going to have to find ways to create some yard after catch opportunities, because I think trying to live on explosives in this one just by air yards is not going to work.
I want to flip real quick to the other side of the ball and ask the question you have to ask of every team that plays the Vikings. What's the plan for Justin Jefferson? They will probably have Addison back in this one. Their target's probably similar to Love, where that's the vibe they're thinking of, but it's not guaranteed yet. So with Addison still taking the top off, that's a threat you have to deal with, but the main threat still is Justin Jefferson.
Of course. Here's the thing, and I wrote about this yesterday in The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to, is we don't know what Jeff Hafley's going to do, because Jeff Hafley has never faced a player like Justin Jefferson. Now, week one, the two best players against man coverage yards per route run in the NFL this year, AJ Brown is number 2. Justin Jefferson is number 1 by a country mile. He's averaging 9 yards per route run against man coverage this season. I know
he doesn't get a lot of man coverage.
No,
so that might be a sample size thing too, but we take those.
It's 3 games and it's probably I think it's 20 total reps.
Yeah. But like nobody has the Texans manned up against him with Derek Stingley a lot. And we were like, dude, what are you doing?
Well, so this is the thing. Even if it's only 20 reps, 9 yards per route run, that's 180 yards in 3 games on man coverage. So that's a lot, right?
Yeah, it happens.
So they were comfortable putting Jair Alexander on AJ Brown and not living in some sort of too high look all game. Now they did play more quarters against Anthony Richardson and Jalen Hurts, but that's also a quarterback run game thing on early downs. So like we'll see. That's why they're going to play a decent amount of man coverage. I think more man coverage than we've seen, or certainly than we saw in the first 2 weeks. The question is then, like, how do you roll coverages to him? Xavier McKinney has been so good as that middle of the field safety, just unbelievable. Frankly, 3 interceptions in 3 games. I think he leads all safeties in what Next Gen Stats calls, it's like yards value above average, where it's like, how many yards do you allow versus the average safety? And Xavier McKinney leads the league in that. I don't know how they calculate it exactly, but it's a cool stat. Isaiah McDuffie for the Packers is the 2nd worst linebacker in the league in that stat, and that tracks with the eye test. This is the key to me. How can you get your linebackers? And I don't want to preempt all of the keys to victory, but if they're going to get Justin Jefferson running in the middle of the field through zone coverages where the linebackers are in their zones, that's a problem for the Packers. And so they have to find a way to avoid that. They're gonna live with Justin Jefferson getting some yards on Jay Alexander one-on-one. And they will, if that's what happens. But I think that
containment. It's like those old Calvin Johnson game plans.
Yeah, you sort of just have to say, like, okay, cool, get some, just don't get everything, and we'll see what we can do, you know? And I don't think they're going to do the thing that they did in 2022, where it's like, okay, we're going to cloud this side with the safety, and Jay Alexander's going to be playing a cover 2 or those kinds of things. Like, I don't
that's think wild, because I feel like that's the thing that worked best. I feel like that was the best plan anyone has ever had against Justin Jefferson, but
it is. This is the thing. I don't know what we're going to see. Jeff Hafley is he's kind of a mad scientist. He's willing to change his game plans week to week. And so I'm excited to see it. And let's talk more about some of these keys to victory here in just a second on a crossover Thursday, Locked On Packers, Locked On Vikings.
Today's crossover Thursday episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And whether you are betting on Packers or Vikings 2.5 point spread, or taking a money line, or maybe even looking at the divisional odds where the Vikings have leapfrogged the Packers somehow, you can find all of that and more at FanDuel. And right now, if you want to get started, you can dump $5 on whatever bet you want. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, whether you win or lose. So you don't even have to agonize too much about what you're picking. Just place a $5 bet on anything you want, from Vikings or Packers playoff odds to single game to some crazy futures bet, Jordan Love MVP odds, whatever you want. You can find it at FanDuel. Put $5 down and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, whether you win or lose. That is FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, we're back here on a crossover Thursday. Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings. Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers. Luke, this is a game where right now the Packers 2.5 point favorites, according to our friends at FanDuel. That look-ahead line was 3, but that was before the Vikings trounced the Texans. So if you were going to put this on 1 or 2 keys for the Vikings, what are they?
I think especially if it's Jordan Love. Assuming that it's Jordan Love and that he's wearing a knee brace and that that you're not going to get 100% mobility, getting hits on him early and often is going to be huge. And disrupting that rhythm is going to be huge. I know the Packers are pretty happy with what's going on at the offensive line.
Yeah.
But if there's anybody to attack, then they're going to find a way to isolate that person, get the one-on-one matchup that they like, and they're going to try to find that. And then it's the same thing that I've been saying for like 2 years about the Vikings now. Sam Darnold has been just begging for a horrible turnover for like 3 weeks, and there have been some turnovers, but it's like we've gotten away with murder a couple times, and you have to either stop doing that or keep getting away with it. So it's a turnover thing. If the Vikings under Kevin O'Connell are 20-0, if they win or tie the turnover battle, they've never lost if they win or tie the turnover battle in the last 2 years and change. So if they can keep that up and just play normal down-to-down football, we've now seen that they can go toe-to-toe with the best. But it has to stay normal. You can't have muffed punts, weird Sam Darnold turnovers that give the Packers the ball on their own 20-yard or on the Vikings 20-yard line and then like put you in a hole. You cannot have
How long have you been the Vikings host?
2018. So this is my 7th season.
How many Vikings games have you watched where they've just been normal?
One, and it was last week. They were normal and they won 34-7. Like, please just be normal. But
I feel like
funny.
every time we do this, I feel like you're just like, just please be normal. You're like
normal.
You're like the person at the family party, like, please just don't embarrass me. Like, please don't.
Please just be normal. Yeah. When they go on primetime, I am. It's like, please God, nobody watch. But it's funny because when I joined Locked On, it was Kirk Cousins' first season. So I've never covered the Vikings in a non-Kirk Cousins season. The differences feel like you can feel the difference, and then you turn on the Falcons and you're like, that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years.
So
it is different. But
that is, and I love that as a key because the Packers lead the NFL in turnovers through 3 weeks.
That's going to be huge then. Yeah.
And so
it's pressure and turnovers.
No one has created turnovers at a higher clip. They have as many interceptions already through 3 weeks as they had in the entirety of last season, including a pick six last week from Jair Alexander, where they did nothing special. Will Levis just had a brain fart and threw it to Jair Alexander the other way.
He just jumped one, right?
It was just like, well, first of all, it was like the worst. There's like the dumbest. I hate the all stop at 5 yards.
Yeah, it's like a super late out that he tried to rifle in there that like you get away with, and
it was just basic zone coverage. But just plotted on it and went the other way. So, but like Xavier McKinney has made a couple where he's ranging over from the deep middle on throws that like really he shouldn't get to, but because he's just very smart, the ways that Harrison Smith makes plays in the middle of the field where you're just like, how did he get to that ball? I don't understand like how he did that. For me, it is, you have to win on the pass against early downs, win on early downs against the pass, because this has been a team. I went and looked into the numbers and I expected to see, okay, Aaron Jones, they're 5th in EPA per rush. They're 5th in success rate on running downs, on running plays. But if you take away garbage time, they're 20th in EPA per rush. They've been really good at the end of these games.
Yeah, they've been closing out those games with it.
Which is a skill. Like the Ravens wish they could be that good at the end of these games, closing out these football games, because they can't stop screwing these things up late. But it's been that they've
very refreshing. Boy, the last couple of years of that were bad.
Well, yeah. Well, Alexander Mattison, it turns out, is just like not good. He's just not it. But they've been throwing it at a higher rate on early downs this year than last year, which seemed impossible to me. And
Kevin O'Connell, baby, loves it.
They've been successful doing it, and so
he's
that's
a 7-on-7 coordinator.
You have to get that early pressure, first down, create a negative, or at least just create an incompletion. And then if you can get to that 3rd and long, let's see Sam Darnold convert 3rd and longs on a consistent basis. That's got to be the goal. And I think they can do it with interior pressure at Ingram. I'm kind of surprised they have not come up with better solutions to what's going on there.
That's so the pressure thing. I wanted to get into that because that's probably the biggest weakness on the offense is that interior line. It's been Ingram, it's been Bradbury. Blake Brandel has also had his fair share, but it's been mostly teams are attacking those other 2 guys. Right. The thing is, in the run, those guys have been really absolute maulers. Yeah. Holy moly, those guys have been maulers. And the Vikings have. They do have Dalton Reisner in the building. He's on IR right now, and they had him, and they said he was going to like kind of push these guys, but it never really was serious, even when he was healthy, and then he got hurt, and it kind of was a moot point.
Well, that's what happens to a guy you add in August. Like those guys just usually can't move the needle the way you would like them to if you need them to.
I mean, yeah, and he was starting by the end of the year last year when they traded Ezra Cleveland away, but they signed him as a backup. They signed him with like roster bonus, like they weren't even sure if he was going to make the team. But they were like, he's here to like push the guards and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, Ingram and Bradbury have been the guys that, they're trying to the other teams are trying to isolate with the one-on-one. We saw Daniil Hunter, lining up over the center, like on 3rd downs, that kind of thing to get that interior pressure. Pressure on the tackles has been impossible. Nick Bosa got a couple on Christian Darrisaw, and I think you kind of just have to be Nick Bosa. Otherwise Darrisaw on Will Anderson totally smoked him. On Hunter got a couple on him. That was pretty fun because those guys know each other so well. But if you're going to get pressure, it has to be up the middle. So it has to be, your Devontae Wyatt or whoever it is that you're going to be like the guy that gets pressure up the middle, or it has to be like
Kenny Clark, love Rashawn Gary. Bradbury. We've seen that before.
Yeah. or it has to be like Rashawn Gary moving the inside on third down, that kind of thing. But getting that pressure or preventing that pressure, finding a way to keep Bradbury and Ingram on a double team with each other so they can help each other out is going to be really crucial for the Vikings protection schemes.
One thing that the Packers have done that has become one of the in vogue things to do, and you will see the Vikings do this, and the Mike Zimmer did this occasionally too, is they will try to mess with your protection rules where they are going to put 3 guys on one side.
Sure.
Where you don't have enough, and then you've got 3 for 3, and then you've got 1 on the other side, just Rashawn Gary. So you can't slide protections to Rashawn Gary.
Yeah.
But then the cool thing is now you walk up a linebacker, and Brian Flores does this too. You walk up a linebacker, it looks like 5-on-5. You think you have this mapped up, and then you have the other linebacker comes looping in around. So it almost becomes like a cross dog, and it's really tough for teams to handle that. We saw Jeff Hafley go deep in his bag against the Titans in the second half when they knew they had to pass, and came up with some really cool stuff, like Edgerrin Cooper shot out of a cannon on some of these. And so they're certainly going to do some things to try and stress the Vikings offensive line. I think it's going to be a cool chess match in that way. You want to make a prediction?
I don't, but I will if you need me to. I can name it. It's 27-24. I don't know.
We don't know what we're gonna see from Jordan Love if he's going to be able to play. I think that's what makes this really tough.
It does.
And so I think this is going to be a really good football game. I'll pick the Packers just because you picked the Vikings. I don't have a strong lean on this. I was certainly much more confident they were going to beat the Titans last year or last week and the Colts before that. So let's have a great game. And let's disagree a little bit more the next time we do this. Sound good?
Actually, we'll argue a little more. I like what you said at the beginning, though, that this might be the 2 best teams in the NFC. Looking at the way the Falcons are struggling, the way the Lions have been up and down, like this might be the 2 best teams in the NFC. Nobody had that on their bingo card. So yeah, let's go have a game.
Let's have some fun, and we will talk to everyone very, very soon.